Have you ever wondered why some parts of the woods stay quiet even when the sun is out? Most people think the daytime is safe. They think monsters only come out at night. But I am a ranger for Parks Canada in Banff, and I am here to tell you that the sun is a lie. The bright light does not protect you. It only helps the things in the forest see you better. My name is Elena, and I have spent years patrolling the mountains. I have seen things that the travel brochures will never tell you about. The government wants you to keep coming here. They want your tourist money. So they hide the truth about the people who go missing in broad daylight. In my hand, I have a red folder. It is marked as secret. Inside this folder are the daylight protocols. These are the real rules of the forest. If you follow them, you might live. If you ignore them, you will become a ghost story. Most rangers are too scared to speak. They are afraid of losing their jobs. But I am quitting today. I am sharing these secrets because I want you to stay alive. I want you to look at the trees and know what is really hiding behind the bark. This is not a fun story for a campfire. This is a warning from someone who has seen the blood on the grass. You need to understand that Banff is beautiful, but it is also hungry. The mountains here are very old. They were here long before humans. Something lives in the high peaks that knows how to copy us. It can sound like your best friend. It can look like a lost hiker. It waits for you to feel safe in the sun. It waits for you to lower your guard. I have watched people walk into open meadows and never come out. There were no tracks. There was no struggle. They just blinked, and they were gone. The sun was shining the whole time. If you stay with me until the very end of this video, I will give you a special reward. I will share the final rule. This is the one rule that saved my life during my last shift. It is the secret that every senior ranger carries but never says out loud. Once you hear it, you will never be afraid of the dark again. You will only be afraid of the light. But first, we must talk about why the forest goes silent at noon. We must talk about why your shadow might not be yours. Are you ready to learn the truth? Let's look inside the red folder together. I remember my first week in Banff very clearly. I was excited to be out in the fresh air. I thought my biggest worry would be a hungry grizzly bear. My trainer was an old man named Silas. He had worked in these mountains for 40 years. He did not talk much. On our first walk together, he stopped me near a place called Cascade Mountain. The sun was high in the sky. It was a perfect summer day. But Silas looked worried. He told me to sit down on a log and listen. He asked me what I heard. I told him I heard the wind and the birds. He shook his head. He said that in Banff, you have to listen for what you don't hear. That was when he told me about rule number 1. The rule is simple, the noon silence. If the forest goes quiet at exactly 12 o'clock, stop moving. Do not take another step. Do not even adjust your backpack. Animals know when something bad is coming. Birds stop singing and squirrels hide. If the forest is quiet, it means a predator is near. But not a normal predator like a wolf. Normal predators make noise when they move. This thing does not. It is like a hole in the air. It moves through the sunlight without making a sound. Silas told me a story about a young ranger who started a year before me. This ranger was brave and strong. One day he was hiking near a lake at noon. The forest went silent. He thought it was just the weather. He kept walking and whistling a happy tune. Other rangers found his hat the next day. It was sitting right in the middle of the path. There were no footprints around it. There was no sign of a fight. He just walked into the silence and never came back. Silas looked me in the eyes and said, "The sun does not hide things. It just makes the shadows darker." I did not believe him at first. I thought he was just trying to scare the new girl. But then it happened to me. I was walking alone near a cliff. The sun was so bright I had to squint. Suddenly, the birds stopped. The wind died down. It felt like I was standing in a room with no windows. I remembered rule number 1. I froze. I did not move a muscle. I stayed like that for 10 minutes. I could feel something watching me from the bushes. It was not a scary feeling like a bear. It was a cold feeling. It felt like death was standing right behind me, waiting for me to turn around. I kept my eyes on the ground. I saw my shadow in the dirt. But then I saw another shadow. It was long and thin. It was standing right next to mine. It had no head. I wanted to scream, but I remembered the red folder. I stayed still until a blue jay finally chirped in a tree. The heavy feeling went away. When I looked back, the extra shadow was gone. That was the day I stopped being a tourist and started being a survivor. I realized that Silas was right. The rules are not just ideas. They are the only thing keeping us from vanishing. After that first day, I started reading the red folder every single night. I wanted to know every secret. I wanted to be ready for whatever was hiding in the bright light. That is when I found rule number 2. This rule is called the mirroring. It is the most common way people get lost in Banff. The rule says, if you see a hiker who looks exactly like you from behind, do not call out to them. Do not try to catch up to them to see their face. In the Yukon and Banff, there are things that can steal your shape. They see you walking in the sun, and they copy your clothes and your hair. They stay just far enough ahead so you can only see their back. I once saw a family of 4 hiking near a waterfall. They were happy and taking pictures. But I noticed something strange. About 50 yards ahead of them, there was another little girl. She was wearing the same pink dress as their youngest daughter. The parents thought their child had just run ahead. They started calling her name. They were walking faster and faster to catch her. But the girl in the pink dress never turned around. She just kept walking deeper into the thick trees where the trail ends. I had to run and stop the father. I told him his daughter was actually right behind him, holding her mother's hand. When the father looked back and saw his real daughter, his face went white. He looked back at the girl in the pink dress in the distance. She stopped walking. She stood perfectly still. Then she started to grow. Her arms became too long for her body. Her neck twisted in a way that would break a human bone. She didn't have feet. She had long black points like needles. She stepped into the shadows of the trees and vanished. The family didn't stay to ask questions. They ran back to their car and left the park. They were lucky. They had a ranger there to tell them what was real. Most people are not that lucky. They follow the mirror because they think they are helping someone. They think they see a friend or a family member. But these things use the daylight to trick your eyes. They know that in the bright sun, you trust what you see. They lead you away from the path. They lead you to places where the sun doesn't reach the ground. Once you are in the deep shade, the mirror stops pretending. That is why we find so many empty cars in the parking lots. The people are gone, but their shadows stay behind. This brings me to rule number 3, the shadow test. Every hour, you must look at your own shadow. In Banff, the sun is very strong. Your shadow should be dark and clear. But if your shadow looks blurry or gray, it means something is standing between you and the sun. Even if the sky is empty, something is there. We call them the sun eaters. They are invisible in the light, but they cast a faint mist. If your shadow fades, you must find a cave or a building immediately. You must get out of the open air. I have seen a shadow disappear entirely while a person was standing in a field. When the shadow goes, the person is next. Rule number 4 is perhaps the scariest one in the red folder. It is about the fake cabins. When you are tired and hiking under the hot sun, seeing a small wooden house feels like a dream. You want to sit down and drink water. You want to get out of the heat. But the rule is very clear. Never enter a building that is not on your official map. In Banff, the land can grow things that look like buildings. They look like old ranger stations or cozy cabins. They even have smoke coming out of the chimneys to make them look warm and safe. I once found a cabin near the edge of a deep canyon. It looked brand new. It had a green roof and a nice porch. I checked my map, but there was nothing there. I felt a strong urge to go inside. It was like a voice in my head was telling me to just take a nap on the porch. I took out my binoculars to look closer. I saw that the wood of the cabin was moving. It wasn't made of logs. It was made of thousands of tiny, brown insects huddled together to look like walls. The smoke from the chimney wasn't smoke at all. It was a cloud of black dust that smelled like old meat. If I had stepped onto that porch, the house would have folded inward like a giant mouth. This is how the mountain eats. It doesn't use teeth. It uses traps. It uses your own tiredness against you. This leads us into rule number 5, the water reflection. In the daytime, the lakes in Banff look like blue glass. They are beautiful. But the protocol says you must never look at your reflection for more than 3 seconds. If you look too long, your reflection might start to move on its own. It might smile when you are not smiling. It might reach out its hand toward you. Senior rangers tell stories about the drowned ones. These are things that live just under the surface of the water. They wait for a lonely hiker to look at the lake. They grab your reflection and pull. If they catch your reflection, your physical body falls into the water too. You don't splash. You don't swim. You just sink like a stone. I once found a pair of sunglasses sitting on a rock by the lake. There were no ripples in the water. There were no wet footprints. I looked into the water and for a split second, I saw a face that wasn't mine staring back. It looked like a man who had been underwater for a very long time. His eyes were wide and yellow. I looked away immediately and ran. I didn't stop until I reached the high ground. My heart was racing. I realized then that in Banff, even the water is watching you. The sun makes everything look bright, but the danger is just as deep as the lake. Rule number 6 is about the sounds of the forest. Sometimes, the mountains use your heart against you. The rule says, if you hear a baby crying or a woman screaming for help in the middle of the woods, do not go toward it. This sounds very mean. Your brain wants to help. You think a person is in trouble. But in the deep forest of Banff, humans are rarely the ones making those sounds. It is a lure. Just like a fisherman uses a worm to catch a fish, the forest uses these sounds to catch you. I remember a young couple who came to the ranger station. They were shaking with fear. They told me they were hiking near the cliffs when they heard a toddler crying. It sounded like the child was just behind a large rock. They were about to run and help when the wife noticed something. The crying sound was repeating perfectly every 10 seconds. It was like a recording. When they stopped to listen, the sound suddenly changed. It turned into a deep, low growl that vibrated in their chests. They didn't look back. They ran until they reached their car. They were smart. They realized that a real baby cannot survive alone on a rocky cliff in the sun. This leads us to rule number 7, the sky check. Most people look at the ground when they are scared. But the red folder says you must look at the sky at least once every 10 minutes. If you see a bird flying backward, or if you see a cloud that stays in the same place while the others move, you are in a time loop. This is a place where the mountain has trapped a piece of the day. You might walk for hours and realize you are back at the same tree. The sun will stay in the same spot in the sky. It will never get dark. You will just keep walking until you are too tired to stand. I once got stuck in a loop near the northern border. I walked past the same broken log 5 times. I felt like I was going crazy. The sun was burning hot, but my watch said it was midnight. I had to follow the loop protocol. I had to take off my boots and walk backward for 100 steps. It sounds silly, but it works. It confuses the land. Suddenly, the birds started moving again. The sun moved across the sky in a flash. I was back on the real trail. I cried with joy when I saw the moon that night. Now we are coming to the end of the red folder. I have told you almost all the secrets. But I promised you a reward for staying until the end. I promised to tell you the final rule. This is the rule that saved me on my very last shift. It is the reason I am alive to talk to you today. It is the most important thing you will ever hear about the wilderness. Are you ready for the final secret? Rule number 9 is something you can't see, but you can smell. The red folder calls it the ozone warning. On a normal sunny day in Banff, the air smells like pine trees and fresh snow. It has a clean, sweet smell. But if you are walking and suddenly the air smells like a thunderstorm is coming, even if there is not a single cloud in the sky, you are in big trouble. That sharp, electric smell means the invisible fence is near. I was patrolling a quiet valley near Lake Louise when I smelled it. It was so strong it made my nose itch. I looked up. The sun was shining bright. There was no rain, but the air started to shimmer, like the heat rising off a hot road. I stopped immediately. I took a dry leaf from a tree and threw it ahead of me. As soon as the leaf hit that shimmering air, it didn't fall to the ground. It turned into white ash instantly. It was like an invisible wall of fire was standing right in front of me. The red folder says these fences move. They do not stay in one place. They are like giant invisible nets that the mountain uses to catch anything that moves too fast. If I had taken one more step, I would have been turned to ash just like that leaf. I had to wait for 3 hours without moving. I watched as birds flew into the shimmering air and simply vanished into puffs of smoke. It was heartbreaking to watch, but I couldn't help them. I had to wait until the smell of ozone went away. This is why rangers always tell you to walk slowly. People who run in the woods are the ones who hit the fences. They are the ones who disappear without a trace. Their families think a bear got them, but we know the truth. They just walked into a place where the air was too hungry. When the smell finally left, I felt a cold breeze. The shimmer was gone. I walked back the way I came, very, very slowly. I didn't care if I was late for my shift. I just wanted to be in a place where the air didn't want to burn me. Rule number 10 is about the whispering grass. In the big meadows of Banff, the grass can grow very tall and yellow. It looks like a beautiful place to have a picnic.